We're following breaking news. A jury has found an Indiana man guilty of killing two teenage girls. Richard Allen was convicted on 2 charges of murder and 2 charges of felony murder. He could face up to 130 years in prison. We have team coverage of this case for you. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee is at the courthouse in Delphi, Indiana. He's been covering this case for us. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson is also standing by to break down the verdict. Ian, tell me, this is such a tragic case. It involves the murder 2017 of 2 young girls, a 13 and a 14-year-old. They were hiking, and I know that during the trial, there were very gruesome photos and details that were on display for the entire courtroom for their families. It's just all around such a tragic case. What was the reaction on the ground when that verdict was learned?
Yeah, Lindsay, even before the judge walked into the courtroom and the jury, there was a tension in the air of anticipation, people waiting. They've been waiting, many for years, to know what was the verdict, what happened to those girls on that day. Was Richard Allen guilty? The judge walked in. The judge gave the court the instructions that she would not tolerate any outbursts from either family side. And then the jury came walking in. The jury then handed the judge their verdict, and it was guilty on all 4 counts. And just as the judge was saying that, you heard muffled crying from both sides, from the family side of Liberty and Abigail, but also from the side of Richard Allen, family holding each other, hugging each other. I looked over and I saw Richard Allen's wife there. She was crying, she was sobbing, keeping it muffled, not trying to break the judge's order. Richard Allen, though, sat there, no expression on him that we could see, very stoic as the judge read out that guilty verdict. The defense and the prosecution then decided on the date. It was December 20th. That's going to be when they sentence him, and he does face up to 130 years in prison.
Jessica, I imagine, we haven't heard from the families yet. I imagine they may feel that this is justice delayed, but not justice denied. Remember, this happened in 2017. He wasn't arrested until 2022. Essentially, prosecutors saying sort of living among us. We know there were crucial pieces of evidence on the prosecution's side. First of all, they had a recording on one of the victim's phones, which they said it was incredible that she had that mindset to do that. They saw a man sort of walking behind them on this trail. And we had confessions that Allen had given to his wife. Now, the defense had said, first of all, that the man in the video didn't match Allen's stature. And they also said that the confessions couldn't be real because he had been in solitary confinement. But clearly the jury not buying those defenses.
Well, that's right. And there was also the evidence, Lindsay, as you know, of a cartridge found by the girls that matched a pistol that was found in his home. And I know that the defense had a number of different theories here. One, as you absolutely correctly laid out, that based on his time in solitary confinement, that some of his confessions could not be credible, that we could not give credence to those confessions. For everybody watching, he confessed more than 60 times. And what the defense also said is, well, there wasn't that smoking gun, so to speak, that literally showed the murder. And of course, unfortunately, Lindsay, you've reported on tragedies before. You know this. We all know this. That often is not present. That's not the standard that jurors need to go by. And so what the jury found here clearly is that at least one of those 60 confessions was credible, that the cell phone camera, which I agree with you, just absolutely remarkable that one of these girls had the state of mind to actually make that recording, did place him at the scene. And also he had tipped the police himself that he was at the scene. He had placed himself there. And this was an old case basically because of a filing error. He had actually called the police and I understand tipped that he was in the area. That tip was misfiled. It was later found, and that's part of what has brought us to this moment. But again, my basic underlying here is that there actually was a lot of evidence, and we often in a case like this don't have more than this evidence and still can reach a jury verdict of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
So the jury got this case on Thursday afternoon. They deliberated through the weekend. We have guilty on all 4 counts today. Jessica, We mentioned he could face up to 130 years in prison. Given what you know about sentencing guidelines, do you think that he could end up facing that?
So oftentimes, I think what we should just remember is that one, it's incredibly difficult to predict. Two, usually you get something in the middle, meaning not the minimum, not the maximum of what the guidance would allow. Two, let's remember there's a reason why we're talking about this case. Murders unfortunately happen every day throughout the country. We're talking about this case because it's particularly gruesome, it's particularly tragic, and there are a lot of aggravating factors here. Now, a judge may take into account not just that, how tragic and gruesome this is, but also the defendant's state of mind. Essentially, it is, and I wish I could say more, but it is a balance between mitigating factors and aggravating factors, and what a judge thinks is reasonable, with the understanding, of course, that we live in the real world and we're talking about somebody who, if they do get a sentence of 30 to 40 years, that is the equivalent likely to a life sentence.
Ian, take us back into the courtroom when the verdict was read. What other reaction can you tell us about? And you've been spending some time there covering this story. What is next for the community in healing after this gruesome crime? Do we expect to hear from any prosecutors after this verdict or family members?
Yeah, Lindsay, we are actually expecting to hear from the state in a little bit, and so we'll bring you that as well. Inside the courtroom, everyone was waiting for this verdict, whichever way it went. People are suffering on both sides. The families will never get their loved ones back. For the family of Richard Allen, he is essentially probably going to go away for the rest of his life. He is in his 50s. And so, the one thing that is interesting is, the last time the jury met, they asked the court to show them interviews of Richard Allen conducted by the police. That may have been key in swaying the jury towards a guilty verdict. But this guilty verdict is really going to have an impact on this community. Delphi is a town of about 3,000 people. I can tell you there have been folks outside waiting. When I left the courthouse, actually, there were cheers of joy. And so this murder really has affected this community. It is going to be very difficult for it to heal, but for many people, with that guilty verdict, the healing process will start to begin.
And real quick, Ian, you mentioned that it could be police interviews that the jury heard that could have put them over the edge. Is that because they heard what his voice sounded like to compare it to the recording on one of the victim's phones? Was it something else that was particularly convincing during those interviews?
Well, what we know from when the jury was asked to look at the videos, we know Richard Allen was there at the time, and what was on those videos, it was the interviews of Richard Allen when he was talking, the police were interviewing him. It was then when the police said, "You are a suspect in this murder," that's when, and asked Richard Allen if they could go investigate his home, that's when he started, as the police would say, not cooperating with them. And so that may have been a key part, those interviews with the police. We don't know yet what swayed the jury, but that could have been crucial in their decision.
Okay, Ian Lee and Jessica Levinson, thank you both so much.